Not everybody has access to amazing fields to be able to plant your food plots in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity to find places to put food for the deer. In this video, I'm gonna share my super simple process and how I create these in the woods food plots in an area where you otherwise wouldn't be able to get any heavy equipment into. For the last 3 seasons, I've had access to this big river bottom property surrounded by ag fields. And while that sounds like an awesome place to hunt, there's no food on the actual property that I have access to hunt. So I've been forced to get creative with where I place these food plots, and it usually means that I'm hauling this stuff in by hand or wheeling it in by wheelbarrow 3/4 of a mile and then putting in these food plots manually. Even if access was better, I don't even own a tractor or an ATV, so I'd be doing it this way. But regardless of what your access situation is, this simple process will work anywhere in the country regardless of where you live. We don't own the property we're at, so we can't go ahead and just cut down all the trees and create an opening for this food plot. So we've found this natural opening in the woods. Some sunlight is hitting the forest floor. We're gonna use a pole saw and trim some of the branches around the perimeter to allow a little bit more light to hit the ground. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next steps. Now that we have the branches trimmed out and more sunlight hitting the forest floor, we can jump into the 3 steps of actually planting the food plot. And the first step in my process is to spread the seeds. Since this area is still somewhat shaded, we're gonna be planting Whitetail Institute's clover blend. This is the most famous clover blend probably anywhere in the whitetail world. So I'm excited to be working with Whitetail Institute this year, but we're gonna get this broadcasted, and then that way while we're doing the rest of our work out here, as we're walking around, trampling on everything, we're pushing that seed into the ground. But the clover seed's so small as it is, it doesn't really take any extra work to get good seed to soil contact. When it rains tomorrow, that rain is gonna drive that seed into the ground, and we're gonna get really good germination, even in an area like this that's partially shaded. When you're planting food plots, there's a couple things that are important. One is the timing of actually doing it. Ideally, we would have got this plot in a week or 2 ago, but there has been 0 rain in the forecast. We're finally getting some. But the other thing to really consider is your seed rate. And for things like brassicas, you definitely don't want to overcrowd your plantings. Clover, on the other hand, you can't really do it too heavy. You're just wasting money at a certain extent. More than likely, we'll probably end up doing too much so, but we're gonna go ahead, seed all of this, and then we'll get into the rest of the steps. We got the seed on the ground, and the other reason why I went with clover is extremely browse tolerant. This is not a large area, maybe a 1/20th of an acre, maybe a 1/10 of an acre at best. It's long and skinny. So we want something that these deer that are bedding right next to us can come out, eat, and browse without wiping out the entire food plot in a day. So that clover hopefully will get enough sunlight to grow and regenerate as it's eaten and last us well into the fall. This could be a really cool rut spot, just a little funnel, a little pinch point, and if it concentrates the deer activity at all, I think we're gonna be in for some cool hunts. But step number 2 in this whole thing is to mow or to weed whack in this case. What I forgot to mention is I did come in here about a month ago, spray all of this with glyphosate, and it did a pretty good job. So I'd say about 75% of all the foliage is dead. This process will still work even if it's a brand new area. I've done this a ton of times where I come in, spread my seed, mow, spray, and then come back and hunt it, and it turns out pretty well. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna knock down the remaining vegetation, get it on the ground, and that's also gonna act as like a mulch layer on top of our seed, help it hold moisture, and then we'll move on to step number 3. I ran out of string. Probably just leave it. I think that's probably good enough. Starting to look like a food plot. Hopefully the deer think so. So the seed is on the ground. We've weed whacked all of the remaining foliage, and that step is probably optional. You could probably get away with just spraying it and not even bother knocking it down. It's something I like to do though. So the third step is we're gonna go in, spray everything with glyphosate. And a lot of people are worried about spraying it on top of their seeds. Glyphosate is a post-emergent. So it's not gonna hurt the seeds. It's not gonna prevent it from growing up. It's only gonna kill the existing plants. So we're gonna end up with a nice clean seed bed so this clover can come up without any weed competition. And we're gonna have a really great spot to hunt this fall. So we're gonna throw on this backpack sprayer. That's how we rock. Most everything we do is with a backpack sprayer. We're gonna knock this out and then we'll talk about the last thing. I know I said 3 steps, but the 4th is optional but recommended. And honestly, this whole thing should have started with getting a soil sample, putting down the recommended amount of lime and fertilizer. That way you maximize the results from the work you're putting in right now. But some people just don't take the time to do a proper soil test. So for those people, I would recommend putting down some fertilizer. Usually just 10-10-10, 12-12-12 is probably a safe bet. So we're gonna go through here, spread some fertilizer. I have had a soil test done in a similar area. pH is really good because we're in like a river bottom, so it's really fertile. pH is solid, but we're gonna go ahead and put some fertilizer down and we'll wrap things up. We're wrapping things up here, and the last step is to put up a cell camera. What good is it to have a food plot without being able to monitor the deer activity to it? So we actually already have a Moultrie Edge 2 set up over here and a beautiful mock scrape right here that I'll link to the video of how you make a mock scrape somewhere up here. We're actually running a mock scrape scent test that we're gonna be running all through the fall. We'll post it sometime towards the end of October, sharing our results, comparing 5 of the best mock scrape scents, and we'll show you that, so make sure you're subscribed. But we're gonna get this camera up and running again. We turned it off so it wouldn't be triggering as we're doing all this work. But if you follow these simple steps, even in hard to reach places like this, you'll end up with beautiful food plots that are productive, that you can draw deer to, shoot a giant buck. Thank you guys for watching though, and I will see you in the next video. Was that super lame? Just a little lame?